Hey, beautiful people. Today we will take a look at your renal diseases or your kidney diseases or your diseases that are related or that will affect your kidneys. Anyway, please note that the function, okay, the main function of your kidneys is to constantly filter blood or constantly filter plasma to remove wastes. Okay, again, the function of your kidneys is to constantly filter blood or to constantly filter plasma to remove waste products present in the blood, of course. And yes, as they do their function, they are constantly or they are also exposed to substances that may cause damage. Again, as they filter blood, the kidneys are continually exposed to substances that may cause damage. And yes, disorders throughout the body or diseases throughout the body can impair kidney function and can lead to abnormal urine analysis results. Again, disorders throughout the body can impair kidney function and can lead to abnormal urine analysis results. Anyway, diseases, please note that they are often classified into three types based on the morphologic component that is initially affected, or based on the morphologic component, or yes, that can either be the kidney parts, okay, based on the part of the kidney or part of the nephron that is initially affected. So it can be glomerular if the glomerulus is involved, can be tubular if the morphologic component that is primarily affected is tubular or the tubules, and can be tubulointerstitial if both the tubules and the renal interstitium are primarily affected. What you call this vascular can be due to decreased in renal perfusion, somewhat tubulointerstitial, somewhat. And please note that in renal disease, one morphologic component is affected initially. Again, initially, one morphologic component is affected in renal disease. However, as the disease progresses, other parts are also involved due to, of course, again, the close structural and functional interdependence of the parts of your kidneys. Again, initially, initially the disease or yes, initially one morphologic component is affected. Okay, in case of renal disease. However, as the disease progresses, other parts of the kidneys or other parts of the nephron are also involved. Why? Because again, there is a very close structural and functional interdependence of the parts of your kidneys. Anyway, let's take a look at your disease. Your glomerular diseases or glomerular disorders, of course, the affected portion is the glomerulus. Okay, is the glomerulus. And your glomerular diseases can be caused by immune complex deposition or by immunologic, or it can be non-immunologic. It can be non-immunologic. And please note that most of your glomerular disorders results from immunologic disorders throughout the body. So probably your glomerular diseases are caused by a pre-existing condition. In immunologic glomerular diseases, they are probably caused by pre-existing condition accordingly. Anyway, let's take a look at your immunologic. In immunologic, you have immune complexes that are deposited. And saan po ba siya nanggaling? Okay, what is the origin of these immune complexes? As what we said, there is a pre-existing condition that will cause the formation of immune complex. Again, there is a pre-existing condition that will cause the formation of your immune complex. Okay, these immune complexes, they are formed as a result of immunologic reactions. Okay, yeah, they are formed as a result of immunologic reactions and increased serum immunoglobulins like IgA. and they circulate in the bloodstream and are deposited in the glomerular membranes. Okay, they are deposited in the glomerular membranes. Once the immune complex is deposited in the glomerular membrane or in the glomerulus, the components of your immune system are attracted. The components of your immune system, they are attracted to your immune complex deposition in the glomerular membrane. So what are these components of your immune system? You have your neutrophils, you have your cytokines, you have your complement, you have your lymphocytes, you have your monocytes accordingly. All of this, they are attracted. All of these uh, components of the immune system are attracted to the immune complex deposition area. And yes, once they are attracted, they will produce change and will somewhat damage the membrane. They will produce a change and will somewhat damage the membrane, causing a glomerular disease. Okay? And please note that depending on the immune system mediator that is involved, damage to the glomerulus may consist of cellular infiltration or proliferation, or it may result in thickening of the glomerular basement membrane, or it may what you call this, or it may cause a damage to the capillaries and basement membrane. Again, depending on the immune system mediators that are involved, the damage may consist of cellular infiltration or proliferation, or the damage or the damage may involve the capillaries and basement membrane, or it may result in thickening of the glomerular basement membrane. Okay, and then you have your non-immunologic. For your non-immunologic, of course, this is caused by exposure to chemicals, toxins, and amyloid materials. Exposure to chemicals, toxins, and amyloid materials. Okay, and yes, non-immunologic, a very good example. Okay, diabetic nephropathy. Okay, diabetic nephropathy. Anyway, non-immunologic again, exposure to chemicals, toxins, and amyloid materials. And yes, okay, example, thickening of the basement membrane in case of diabetic nephropathy. And what else? Nephrotic syndrome accordingly. Okay, nephrotic on, let's take a look first at your nephrotic and nephritic syndrome. When you say nephritic, there is an inflammation of the glomerulus. Inflammation only without infection. Again, when you say nephritic, there is an inflammation of the glomerulus that will cause the reduction in the filtration rate. Again, when you say nephritic, there is an inflammation of the glomerulus. There is no infection, please. There is no infection when you say nephritic syndrome. And yes, when there is an inflammation of the glomerulus, this one will cause the reduction in the filtration rate. Anyway, your nephritic syndrome is immune mediated. Nephritic syndrome is immune mediated. There is a deposition of your immune complexes. Okay, and it is not caused by bacteria. Okay, the immune complexes, they are not bacteria themselves. Okay, and in nephritic syndrome, there is an acute onset of grossly visible hematuria. There is an onset of grossly visible hematuria, and there is a glomerular bleeding in this case. That is why red cell casts are seen in the urine. Red cell casts are seen in the urine. Aside from that, there is mild to moderate proteinuria, and there is oliguria. There is oliguria because there is a reduction in the filtration rate of your nephrotic syndrome. When you say nephrotic syndrome, there is an increased glomerular permeability. There is an increased glomerular permeability. Okay, and in nephrotic syndrome, there is a disruption in the filtration barrier. Okay, there is a disruption in the filtration barrier causing massive proteinuria. There is a disruption in the filtration barrier that will cause massive proteinuria. And the disruption of the protein barrier is due to the damage in the membrane and changes in the electrical charge. Okay, so in case that there is a disruption in the filtration barrier, okay, there is a damage to the shield of negativity and there's damage to the podocytes, it will cause, okay, it will cause the barrier to be less tightly connected. Again, if there is a damage to the shield of negativity and the podocytes are damaged also, the what you call this, the barrier will become less tightly connected. With that, there is an increased glomerular permeability causing massive protein loss. Okay, that is for nephrotic syndrome. In nephrotic syndrome, there is damage, okay, to the shield of negativity is lost. Okay, the shield of negativity is lost, and somewhat accordingly, it is irreversible. Anyway, your what you call this? Your nephrotic syndrome shows heavy proteinuria. It shows heavy proteinuria of greater than 3.5 grams per day. Greater than 3.5 grams per day, or you have greater than 4 grams per day. Greater than 4 grams or greater than 3.5 grams, not milligrams. Okay, it's grams per day. Anyway, and yes, since you are what you call this, since there is what you call this heavy proteinuria, there is heavy proteinuria. Please note there is hypoalbuminuria. There is hypoalbuminuria, and also sorry, there is hypoalbuminemia. Okay, because albumin is the primary protein that is depleted in the circulation. In case of proteinuria in nephrotic syndrome, albumin is the primary protein that is depleted from the circulation, causing hypoalbuminemia. Hypoalbuminemia. And yes, okay, this hypoalbuminemia, okay, there is less than 3 grams per dl. There is less than 3, okay, grams per dl of albumin in the blood. Okay, and what are the effects of hypoalbuminemia? Okay, hypoalbuminemia will cause edema. Hypoalbuminemia will cause edema. Please note that there will be a low oncotic pressure in the capillaries resulting from the depletion of albumin in the plasma. And yes, it will cause, if there is depletion or decreased albumin in the plasma, it will cause an increase in the fluid loss to the interstitial fluid. Please note, go back again in clinical chemistry. The function of your albumin is for oncotic pressure. Is for oncotic pressure. It will somewhat hold fluids. Anyway, your hypoalbuminemia, the decrease in low or decreased in albumin levels in the blood will stimulate an increased lipid production. It will stimulate increased lipid production by the liver. It will increase lipid production by the liver accordingly. So, there is hyperlipidemia in case of hypoalbuminemia. Okay, there is hyperlipidemia due to uh, hypoalbuminemia. And hypoalbuminemia again will increase the production of lipids in by the liver. And yes, please note, lipiduria is seen in nephrotic syndrome. Okay, pakitandaan po, nephrotic syndrome, there is proteinuria and there is lipiduria. There is proteinuria and there is lipiduria. Okay, anyway, aside from that, The individuals with nephrotic syndrome are susceptible to infections. They are susceptible to infections because, okay, because of loss of plasma proteins. Okay, they are susceptible to infections. Aside from infections, they are susceptible to coagulation disorders because, again, there is a loss of proteins. There is a loss of proteins. The immunoglobulins or proteins that are uh, required for defense, they are lost. They are excreted in the urine, as well as, of course, your coagulation proteins, your fibrinogen, and your other coagulation proteins. They are also lost in the urine. Okay, please note heavy proteinuria. And please note that acute, there is what you call as acute onset of nephrotic syndrome. Acute onset is caused by disruption or circulatory disruption, producing systemic shock that will decrease the pressure and flow of blood to the kidneys. Okay, so you have, of course, the diseases that are associated or diseases that will cause nephrotic syndrome. You have your diseases that will cause nephrotic syndrome. You have your minimal change disease, membranous glomerulonephritis, and the rest accordingly. Okay, and the rest of your diseases. Okay, urine analysis findings again, marked proteinuria or heavy proteinuria, lipiduria in the presence of course, how do you say, when do you say that there is lipiduria? There is free fat droplets and there are oval fat bodies. Okay, oval fat bodies are seen, free fat droplets are seen, RTE cells, epithelial casts, fatty casts, and waxy casts. Okay, and there is a microscopic hematuria. Also, there is microscopic hematuria. And yes, let's take a look at your glomerulonephritis. Your glomerulonephritis, of course, it is a nephrotic syndrome. Okay, glomerulonephritis, please note that there is an inflammation of the glomerulus. Inflammation without infection. Okay, there is a sterile inflammation of the glomerulus accordingly. Okay, there is a sterile inflammation of the glomerulus. And yes, your glomerulonephritis may progress from one form to another. It may progress from one form to another. And laboratory findings, urine analysis results, there is hematuria, proteinuria, and the presence of casts, presence probably of red cell cast somewhat. Okay, so take a look at your diseases, glomerular diseases that show nephritic pattern. That show nephritic pattern. First on the list is your acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. There is an acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. This is nephritic still. Okay, there is a deposition of immune complexes. Since it is acute, there is a sudden onset of symptoms that is consistent with the damage to the glomerular membrane. So you have your signs and symptoms. You have your fever, edema, fatigue, nausea, hypertension, oliguria, proteinuria, and hematuria accordingly. Okay, but what happens? But what happens in acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis? Okay, your acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis happens in young children and young adults, or in children and young adults after respiratory infection with certain strains of group A beta hemolytic streptococci that contain the M protein in the cell wall or in their cell wall. Again, your uh, acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis occurs in children and young adults after an infection after a respiratory infection caused by certain strains of group A beta hemolytic streptococci that contain the M protein in the cell wall. Okay? And yes, what happens since there is an immune complex deposition? No? The nephrogenic strain of group A beta hemolytic streptococci will form immune complexes with their corresponding antibodies. Okay. Again, the nephrogenic strain of this group A beta hemolytic streptococci will form immune complexes with their corresponding circulating antibodies, and once they reach once they reach the glomerulus, this immune complexes formed between the circulating antibodies and the nephrogenic strains of your group A beta hemolytic streptococci. They will be deposited, or they will be lodged in the glomerular membrane. They will be lodged in the glomerular membrane. Okay, they will be lodged in the glomerular membrane accordingly. And yes, laboratory for this one, laboratory results or laboratory findings. There is a rapid onset of hematuria. There is gross hematuria. There is proteinuria, red blood cell casts, granular casts, dysmorphic red cells, hyaline casts, and WBC casts. Please note that what we call this management of the secondary complications or treatment, or what we call this uh, or yes, treatment requires management of the secondary complications until the immune complexes has been until the immune complexes have been removed from the blood and from the and until they are removed from the blood. Okay. And please note that hematuria is still persistent. Hematuria is still persistent until the membrane damage is repaired. Okay, so your main goal here in the treatment is to remove the immune complexes, or to clear out the immune complexes. Do not just treat the sign or the symptom. Your main goal is to remove the immune complexes so that they will not get deposited in the in the glomerulus. Okay, so again, hematuria is persistent until the membrane damage is repaired. And please note other findings in what we call this blood. There is an increased BUN, blood urea nitrogen, and a positive group A anti-streptococcal enzyme test, or your ASO, anti-streptolysine O, as well as a positive anti-deoxyribonuclease B antibody, or your anti-DNase B, will provide an evidence that the disease is of streptococcal origin. It will confirm, positive ASO and positive anti-DNase anti-DNase B will what you call this provide an evidence that the what you call this that the glomerular disease is of post streptococcal, or is streptococcal origin. Let's take a look at your the deposition of your immune complex. Please note that antibodies will bind to your streptococcal antigens. Okay, antibodies will bind to your streptococcal antigens. And of course, these immune complexes formed will lodge in the glomerulus. They will be lodged in the glomerulus, particularly in the podocyte. And yes, they will form a hump-like deposits accordingly. And the deposition will trigger inflammation. Immune complex will attract, they will attract uh, they will attract immune system components. And of course, since there is an inflammation, it will cause the endothelial cells to swell, and enlarge, causing a narrow capillary lumen, causing a narrow capillary lumen, and this narrow capillary lumen will reduce the blood flow through the glomerulus. It will reduce a blood flow through the glomerulus. The mesangial cells will respond to the injury present in them and will cause a hypercellular glomerulus. Anyway, okay, and the red blood cells in the capillaries will leak out, okay, producing what you call this, the red blood cells in the capillaries will leak out, producing hematuria and RBC cast, okay, producing hematuria and red blood cell cast. So accordingly, there is an increased blood urea nitrogen because of a blocking of the glomerulus. There is a blocking of the glomerulus causing a decrease in the glomerular flow. If there is a decrease in the glomerular flow, there is a decrease in the glomerular filtration rate, causing an increase in serum BUN levels. There is a what you call this, decrease in the filtration area. That is why there is a decrease in the glomerular filtration rate. Okay, that is for your acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Your rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Okay, please note that your rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis is a more serious form of acute glomerular disease. It is more serious than acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. And yes, it involves deposition of immune complexes pa rin from systemic immune disorders. Okay, and please note, rapid progressive. There is a rapid onset with glomerular damage and progressive possible progression to end-stage renal disease. Again, rapid onset, rapid. Okay, there is a rapid onset with glomerular damage, and progressive, it will progress. There is a high chance to progress to end-stage renal disease. Okay, still nephritic immune complex po ito. Okay, there is a deposition of immune complexes in the glomerulus. Okay, this immune complex deposition is a complication of other form of glomerulonephritis or a disorder in the immune system. Okay, so such disorders like SLE. Okay, like SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus. Okay, source of the immune complex. Okay, another form of glomerulonephritis or a disorder of the immune system like systemic lupus erythematosus accordingly. Okay, and please note that the damaged glomerulus will allow release of cells and fibrin into the Bowman's capsule, leading to crescentic formation and pressure changes. Okay, for this one. So, in what they call this, in rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, there is there is gross hematuria. There is proteinuria, red blood cell casts, dysmorphic red cells, hyaline, and granular casts accordingly. Please note that what you call this, uh, your rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis will also possess or will also show increased fibrin, okay, increased fibrin degradation products. What else? There is also increased in cryoglobulins. It is associated with increased, okay, fibrin degradation products, increased cryoglobulins, and deposition of immunoglobulin A immune complexes in the glomerulus accordingly. Okay, again, there is marked proteinuria. Okay, there is gross hematuria, and there is a decrease in glomerular filtration rate. That is for your rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Okay, please note that in this case, okay, the what we call this, the immune complex will attract your immune system components. And these immune system components will damage, okay, will try to destroy, okay, it will try to destroy the immune complexes. Okay, and yes, as they destroy the immune complex, they somewhat damage the capillary walls, that will release cells and plasma into the Bowman's space. Okay, that will release cells and plasma into the Bowman space. Uh, with that process, okay, there is a production of crescentic formations containing macrophage, fibroblasts, and polymerized red cells. Okay, it will produce crescentic formations, no, that contains macrophage, fibroblast, and polymerized fibrins, causing permanent damage to your capillary, thereby destroying the glomerulus. Okay, and then you have your good pasture syndrome. Your good pasture syndrome. So for this one, in good pasture syndrome, there is an attachment of a cytotoxic antibody formed during viral respiratory infection to your glomerular and alveolar basement membrane. Again, there is in good pasture, there is an attachment of cytotoxic antibody that is formed during viral respiratory infection. They will attach to the alveolar basement membrane and to the glomerular basement membrane. Okay? And please note that attachment of the autoantibody to the basement membrane, again, attachment of your autoantibody to the basement membrane will what you call this cause the activation of complement. Okay, attachment to the basement membrane, attachment of the autoantibody to the basement membrane will activate complement, and once the complement is activated, it will produce capillary, it will cause capillary destruction. Okay, please note the function of your complement. Okay, membrane lysis, 'di ba? Membrane lysis. Okay, and yes, it will cause damage or destruction to the capillaries. Okay, and please note that the autoantibody we are talking here is antiglomerular basement membrane antibody. Antiglomerular basement membrane antibody. Okay, and yes, this antiglomerular basement membrane antibody, okay, can be detected in the patient's serum. It can be detected in the patient's serum. Okay, so initial, what we call this, initial sign is hemoptysis. Okay, coughing out of blood and dyspnea. Okay, mauuna po siya. Okay, lung complications, lung signs, okay, will show first, followed by the development of hematuria. Okay, so hemoptysis and dyspnea muna before the appearance of blood in the urine. Okay, before the appearance of blood in the urine. And yes, this good pasture syndrome may lead to chronic glomerulonephritis and end-stage renal disease. It can progress to chronic glomerulonephritis and end-stage renal disease. Please note that what you call this progression to this one is common. Progression to this one is common. Urine analysis, proteinuria, hematuria, of course, okay, and presence of WBC casts, presence of WBC. And then you have your granulomatosis with polyangiitis. Okay, granulomatosis with polyangiitis. This one is formerly known as Wegener's granulomatosis. Formerly known as Wegener's granulomatosis. Okay, it is a granuloma producing, okay, accordingly. Anyway, it is a granuloma producing inflammation of the small blood vessels. Okay, primarily the small blood vessels of the kidneys and the respiratory system. Again, your granulomatous with polyangiitis is a granuloma producing inflammation of the blood vessels, of small blood vessels, particularly the blood vessels of the kidneys and the respiratory system and the lungs accordingly. Okay, so in this one, okay, there is an autoantibody. You have your anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody. Anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody. What does it do? This ANCA will bind to neutrophils that is located in the vascular walls. Okay, it will target or will bind to neutrophils located in the vascular walls, and this binding will initiate immune response and will result to granuloma formation in the lungs and in the kidneys. Okay, it will result to granuloma formation in the lungs and in the kidneys. And same with what they call this, same with good posture syndrome, nauuna po ang hemoptysis, nauuna po ang lung complication or pulmonary symptom. Pulmonary symptoms appear first before the development of renal, before the development or involvement of the kidneys. Okay, so what they call this, urine analysis, hematuria, proteinuria, red blood cell casts. For what they call this serum, there is what they call this elevated levels of serum creya and blood urea nitrogen BUN. Okay, other laboratory findings increase serum and BUN accordingly. And of course, okay, presence of ANCA. Okay, presence of anti-neutrophilic cytoplasmic antibody. And then you have your membranous glomerulonephritis. Okay, membranous glomerulonephritis. Okay, your membranous glomerulonephritis, okay, there is a pronounced thickening of the glomerular basement membrane resulting from the deposition of immunoglobulin G immune complexes. Okay, again, there is an involvement of immunoglobulin G deposition in the glomerular basement membrane causing a pronounced thickening. And yes, this one, your membranous glomerulonephritis, is seen in SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, Sjogren's syndrome, secondary syphilis, and hepatitis B infection, as well as gold and mercury treatments, and malignancy. Okay, and accordingly, 75% of the cases of membranous glomerulonephritis are of unknown etiology. 75% of the cases of glomerulonephritis or of this membranous glomerulonephritis are of unknown etiology. Accordingly, unknown etiology. Laboratory or urine analysis, microscopic hematuria and proteinuria. Okay, microscopic proteinuria and microscopic hematuria and proteinuria. And this proteinuria, the proteinuria seen can be can reach, okay, as can reach the concentrations similar to nephrotic syndrome. The concentrations of proteinuria can be similar to nephrotic syndrome. Okay, please note that red blood cell casts are rare in membranous glomerulonephritis, but microscopic hematuria is common. Microscopic hematuria is common, of course. Okay, and so as a support, demonstration of one of the secondary disorders. Okay, demonstration of one of the secondary disorders through blood tests can help the diagnosis. Okay, and so if it tested positive for syphilis, then probably it will support, okay, membranous glomerulonephritis for that one. And yes, accordingly, as the disease progresses, okay, as the disease progresses, uh, or sorry, the disease progression is slow. Sorry, the disease progression is slow, but then there is a possible remission. There is a possible remission. And yes, there is a tendency toward thrombosis. There is a tendency of thrombosis in case of membranous glomerulonephritis. And then you have your membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis. Okay, it is membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis. Okay, of course, sorry, in membranous glomerulonephritis, okay, the diagnosis is supported by anti-nuclear antibody against the secondary diseases, okay, hepatitis testing as well as testing for syphilis. Anyway, for your membranoproliferative disorder or for your membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, okay, there is a cellular proliferation affecting capillary walls or the glomerular basement membrane. Okay, so it is marked by alterations in the cellularity of the glomerulus and peripheral capillaries. Okay, there is an alteration in the cellularity of the glomerulus and peripheral capillaries. Accordingly, this can be possibly immune mediated. Possibly immune mediated. And yes, your membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis can progress to chronic glomerulonephritis and can progress nephrotic syndrome, can progress to nephrotic syndrome. And accordingly, you have three types. You have type 1. Type 1 na membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis displays an increased cellularity in the subendothelial cells of the mesangium, causing thickening of the capillary walls. For type 1, there is a what we call this increased cellularity in the subendothelial cells of the mesangium. Okay? And for type 2, okay, for type 2, okay, there is an extremely dense deposition in the glomerular basement membrane. There is an extremely dense deposition in the glomerular basement membrane. Aside from that, deposition in the tubules and Bowman's capsule. Okay, for your type 1 kasi, it is in the subendothelial cells of the mesangium lang. And then you have your membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis type 3, characterized by both subepithelial and subendothelial deposits. Subepithelial and subendothelial deposits. Okay, of course. Okay, and so for type 1, your type 1 membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, it can progress to nephrotic syndrome. Patients will progress to nephrotic syndrome for type 1. For type 2, okay, and so patients experience symptoms similar with chronic glomerulonephritis. Okay, and laboratory or urine analysis, hematuria, proteinuria. Aside from that, there is decreased serum complement levels. There is decreased serum complement levels. Okay, and yes, for membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis, it is associated with autoimmune disorders, infections, and malignancies accordingly. Okay, same with the membranous glomerulonephritis. And then you have your IgA nephropathy. Okay, IgA nephropathy. Okay, in IgA nephropathy, this is otherwise known as Berger's disease. Okay, IgA nephropathy, there is immune complexes containing IgA which are deposited in the glomerular membrane. Okay, immune complexes containing immunoglobulin A are deposited in the glomerular membrane. Okay, and probably, okay, this is caused by mucosal infection. Okay, because diba, if there is an increased levels of serum o IgA, it indicates a mucosal infection. Okay, mucosal mediated immunity kasi your IgA. 'Di ba? Okay, that is why if there is an increased levels of serum IgA, probably there is a mucosal infection. Okay, there is a mucosal infection. And in this case, IgA nephropathy is probably caused by a mucosal infection. Okay, probably caused by a mucosal infection. And yes, please note that your IgA nephropathy or your Berger's disease is the most common cause of glomerulonephritis. The most common cause of glomerulonephritis. The most common cause of glomerulonephritis. And yes, please note that what you call this, your individuals with the IgA nephropathy may remain asymptomatic for 20 years. Individuals with IgA nephropathy may remain asymptomatic for 20 years or more. But then there is a gradual progression to chronic glomerulonephritis and then to end-stage renal disease. Okay, they are asymptomatic for 20 years or more, but but throughout the course, there is a gradual progression to chronic glomerulonephritis and end-stage renal disease accordingly. Okay, of course, macroscopic hematuria is seen after an infection or strenuous exercise. Macroscopic hematuria is seen after an infection or strenuous exercise. And yes, okay, even if the patient is asymptomatic, microhematuria is seen and there is an elevated serum levels. Okay, yeah. Even if it is asymptomatic, microhematuria is seen and there is an elevated IgA serum levels. Macroscopic hematuria or gross hematuria, okay, will resolve spontaneously. Macroscopic or gross hematuria will resolve spontaneously. But then, okay, microhematuria, okay, and the elevated serum levels are persistent even though the patient is asymptomatic. For your chronic glomerulonephritis, okay, there is a gradual worsening of symptoms of glomerulonephritis leading to loss of kidney function. And please note that progression to chronic glomerulonephritis depends on the extent and duration of damage in acute glomerulonephritis. Again, progression to chronic glomerulonephritis depends on the extent and duration of damage in acute glomerulonephritis. Signs and symptoms, you have your fatigue, anemia, hypertension. Anemia, because of course there is a constant excretion of blood, of red cells. Okay, constant loss. Hypertension, edema, and oliguria. Okay, laboratory or urine analysis, hematuria. There is presence of hematuria, proteinuria, glucosuria, isostenuria, and many casts accordingly. Other laboratory findings increased BUN and creatinine, as well as electrolyte imbalance. Please note that for urine analysis, there is the presence of granular cast, waxy cast, and broadcasts accordingly for this. Yes, let's take a look at your nephrotic syndrome. Glomerular diseases that show nephrotic syndrome. Again, when you say nephrotic syndrome, okay, there is a damage or the shield of negativity is lost. Okay, there is a the shield of negativity is lost. Anyway, your minimal change disease or your minimal change disease is otherwise called as lipid nephrosis or NIL disease, NIL. Okay, lipid, lipid nephrosis or NIL disease, NIL disease. Okay, NIL. Okay. Yes, in minimal change disease, there is the disruption of podocytes. And of course, there is the disruption of the shield of negativity. Okay, it occurs primarily in children following an allergic reaction or following immunizations according. Please note that in minimal change disease, it will produce a minimal cellular change in the glomerulus. Okay, it will produce a little cellular change in the glomerulus. But okay, it will produce little cellular change in the glomerulus, kaya siya minimal change disease. But then, okay, there is a damage to the podocyte and damage to the shield of negativity. There is a damage to the podocyte and damage to the shield of negativity, which will allow for increased protein filtration, which will allow for the increased protein permeability. Okay, which will allow again for increased protein permeability. And yes, your minimal change disease is associated with allergic reactions, recent immunizations, and presence of HLA or human leukocyte antigen B12. Human leukocyte antigen B12, okay, are associated with this minimal change disease. Okay, accordingly, again, minimal change disease, the cause or the etiology is unknown, but then it is associated with allergic reactions, recent immunizations, and the possession or presence of HLA-B12 antigen for this one. And yes, for the patients with minimal change disease, okay, they have heavy proteinuria. They will present with edema also, transient hematuria, okay, heavy proteinuria, transient hematuria, and normal results for blood urea, for BUN and creatinine. And the patients are usually children. The patients are usually children. So for this, your minimal change disease, this is the most common cause of nephrotic syndrome in children. Your minimal change disease, this is the most common cause of nephrotic syndrome in children. It accounts to 85 to 95% of the cases. And yeah, some what you call this, some studies show that minimal change disease is a disorder of the T cells. Some studies accordingly show that your MCD or your minimal change disease is a disorder of the T cells, wherein the T cells will release a cytokine that will injure the glomerular epithelial food processes, or that will injure the glomerular podocytes. Focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. Please note that it is focal and segmental, meaning it affects only certain numbers of glomerulus and certain areas of the glomerulus. Kaya po siya focal segmental. Anyway, it affects only certain numbers and areas of the glomerulus, and of course other glomerulus and other parts are normal. And please note, in focal segmental, there is a disruption of the podocytes in certain areas of the glomerulus. There is a disruption of podocytes in certain areas of the glomerulus accordingly. Anyway, your focal segmental glomerulosclerosis is one of the most common causes of primary glomerular disease in adults. Primary glomerular disease in adults. And yes, again, it occurs as a primary, your focal segmental glomerulosclerosis occurs as a primary glomerular disease or can be secondary to another disease or drug. Okay, for your focal segmental. And yes, it is associated, since sabi natin, it can be secondary to another disease or can be caused by drug, then it is seen, or this one is associated with abuse of heroin, okay, analgesics, and hepatitis, as well as HIV viruses. Okay, HIV viruses. There is also immune deposits. You have IgM and C3 immune deposits that are seen. Anyway, your your urine analysis, there is moderate to heavy proteinuria and microscopic hematuria. Okay, are the most consistent findings. Conlin purpura. Okay, this one is an allergic purpura that causes a decrease in the number of platelets and will affect the vascular integrity. And yes, This purpura occurs after respiratory infection. It occurs after respiratory infection. Okay, so primary signs, red skin patches or raised red patches on the skin. Please note that Hinox condyle purpura may affect the respiratory, the gastrointestinal, and then the urinary or the kidneys accordingly. Okay, so in the skin, of course, you have red skin patches. In the respiratory, okay, you have blood in the sputum. And then in the gastrointestinal tract, there is blood in the stool. Okay, and please note that among the complications of Hinox condyle purpura, renal involvement is the most serious. Renal involvement is the most serious complication of your Hinox condyle purpura. Okay, and so because it can damage, or what we call this, it can damage the blood vessels. Because again, what is the purpose of your platelets? It will somewhat maintain vascular integrity. It will maintain vascular integrity. If platelets are absent, okay, and so that it will cause a loss in the vascular integrity. Okay, and yes, your glomerulus is a blood vessel. Anyway, your what we call this, your Hinox condyle purpura, okay, will present heavy proteinuria, mild to heavy proteinuria, and hematuria in presence of WBC casts. Please note that complete recovery with normal renal function is seen in more than 50% of patients. Again, complete recovery with normal renal functions is seen in more than 50% of patients. Then you have your diabetic nephropathy. Your diabetic nephropathy, okay, there is a depossession. Okay, there is a depossession of glycosylated proteins due to poorly controlled diabetes. Due to poorly controlled blood glucose levels. Okay, for diabetic nephropathy. There is a deposition of glycosylated proteins due to poorly controlled blood glucose levels, which will affect the vascular structure, causing that will somewhat develop sclerosis. Okay, these depositions will cause a will affect the vascular structure and will somewhat progress or develop sclerosis. Okay? In diabetic nephropathy, there is a glomerular damage that is due to capillary thickening due to the deposition of glycosylated proteins. What else? Increased proliferation of the mesangial cells. This one is also still due to deposition of glycosylated proteins and increased deposition of cellular and non-cellular materials, which will affect the vascular structure, leading to sclerosis accordingly. Okay, and yes, currently, this is the most common cause of end-stage renal disease. Diabetic nephropathy is the most common cause of end-stage renal disease. In diabetic nephropathy, please note that microalbuminuria is important to detect the onset of diabetic nephropathy. Microalbuminuria. Okay, and yes, okay, just a bit of prevention. Okay, modification of the diet and control of hypertension can decrease the progression of diabetes to diabetic nephropathy or can decrease the progression into end-stage renal disease. Your tubular diseases. Okay, your tubular diseases, please note that your tubular diseases may be due to actual tubule damage or may be due to metabolic or hereditary disorder. And the most common cause or primary disorder associated with damage to the renal tubules is your acute tubular necrosis. Acute tubular necrosis. Anyway, Your acute tubular necrosis, it is caused by a damage to the renal tubular epithelial cells due to ischemia and nephrotoxic agent. Okay, so your disorders that may cause ischemic acute tubular necrosis, okay, or ischemia, you have shock, trauma in crush injuries, surgical procedures, cardiac failure, sepsis involving toxigenic bacteria, anaphylaxis, massive hemorrhage, and contact with high voltage electricity. Those items will cause damage to your tubular epithelial cells due to ischemia. And nephrotoxic agents, okay, which can damage your renal tubular epithelial cells. You have your aminoglycoside antibiotics, antifungal agents like your amphotericin B, cyclosporine, radiographic dye, organic solvents like ethylene glycol, and heavy metals, and toxic mushrooms. Okay, they can damage your renal tubular epithelial cells, resulting to acute tubular necrosis. Okay, resulting to acute tubular. And usually, acute complications of an ischemic event for your ATN or can be caused by gradual exposure to toxic agent. Yes, okay, and so laboratory, you have hematuria, renal tubular epithelial cells in the urine, RTE casts, and other casts accordingly. Of course, okay, and so these ones will be corrected or mawawala po sila. Your hematuria and the following will be corrected once the underlying cause is corrected. Like, let's say, for example, if the cause is, if the underlying cause is ischemia, okay, then of course, once the ischemia is corrected, then the damage to the kidneys is also correct. And then you have your Fanconi syndrome. Your Fanconi syndrome is a generalized failure of tubular reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubule. Again, your Fanconi syndrome is a generalized failure of tubular reabsorption in the Fanconi, I mean in the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, Fanconi. Okay, there is a failure of your tubular reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubule. And okay, it is not selective. Okay, tubular reabsorption of all substances. Okay, tubular reabsorption of all substances. Okay, it is not only for glucose or for proteins, it is for all substances. There is a failure of tubular reabsorption of all substances. Okay, but then the substances that are affected most noticeably are glucose, amino acids, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, and water. So what are the mechanisms? Okay, your tubular reabsorption may be affected by the dysfunction of the transport of filtered substances across the tubular membrane. There is a dysfunction or disruption of the transport of filtered substances. What else? In Fanconi syndrome, there is a disruption of the cellular energy needed for transport, or there is a change in membrane permeability of the tubules. Okay, those are the ways on how the tubular reabsorption is affected in case of Fanconi syndrome. And yes, accordingly, your Fanconi syndrome may be inherited in association with the cystinosis and Hartnupp's disease. Or this can be acquired through exposure to toxic agents. Again, Fanconi syndrome may be inherited in association with the cystinosis and Hartnupp's disease, or your Fanconi syndrome can be acquired through exposure to toxic agents, including toxic agents, including heavy metals, or heavy metals like mercury, of course. What else? Outdated tetracycline, okay, or expired tetracycline, and your Fanconi syndrome is seen as a complication also of multiple myeloma or renal transplant. Your Fanconi syndrome is seen as a complication of multiple myeloma or renal transplant accordingly. Okay? And yes, in Fanconi syndrome, you have glycosuria and possible mild proteinuria and low urine pH. Okay, glycosuria with normal blood glucose and possible mild proteinuria. Low urine pH is seen because again, there is the failure to reabsorb bicarbonate. There is the failure to reabsorb bicarbonate in the PCT. Then you have your Alport's syndrome. Your Alport's syndrome is an inherited collagen disorder, okay, or inherited disorder of collagen production. So with that, there is a product, there is the collagen production is affected. Okay, the collagen production is affected. And please note, bakit po tayo nagsasabi ng collagen dito? Please note that your glomerular basement membrane is made of collagen. Okay, it is made of collagen. Okay, you have a lot of collagen present in the GBM. And in Alport syndrome, collagen production is affected. Okay, collagen production is affected. Okay, so yes, in Alport syndrome, the glomerular basement membrane has lamellated appearance with areas of thinning because there is what they call this, there is an impairment in the collagen production. Okay, there is an impairment in the collagen production. Probably there is low production of collagen. That is why there is lamellated appearance of the GBM and there is thinning. If you try to remember, your GBM is thick. Okay, your GBM, your glomerular basement membrane is thick data. Okay, if the GBM is if the GBM has lamellated and there is a thinning, then of course, okay, what you call this, it will affect. Okay, it will affect the what you call this, the filtration processes, or yes, the processes that is required for it. Anyway, okay, for urine analysis, you have hematuria, proteinuria that will progress to nephrotic syndrome and end-stage renal disease. As for your Alport's syndrome, there is no evidence of glomerular antibodies that is present. Okay, there is no evidence of glomerular antibodies that is present. The affected is collagen production, and collagen production is an important component of your glomerular basement membrane. And then you have your uromodulin associated kidney disease. Your uromodulin associated kidney disease. And yes, please note that your uromodulin or your Thom Horsfall protein is a glycoprotein that is produced by the kidneys. It is produced by the kidneys accordingly. And yes, the proximal and distal convoluted tubules is the portion, are actually the portions of the kidneys that are responsible in production. Okay? And yes, we do not measure this one in the laboratory, but then based on research, nasabi ko na din po ito sa inyo, that it constitutes more than one-third of the proteins in the urine. It constitutes more than one-third of the protein found in the urine. Okay, that is, and yes, please note that this is not a plasma protein. This is not a plasma protein. And in uromodulin associated kidney disease, okay, in uromodulin associated kidney disease, there is an there is a decrease in the production of normal uromodulin. There is a decrease in the production of normal uromodulin. And yes, it is replaced by an abnormal form. Okay, because your uromodulin-associated kidney disease is an inherited disorder caused by an autosomal mutation in the gene that produces uromodulin. If there is an alteration, okay, then abnormal uromodulin will be produced, not normal uromodulin will be produced. Okay, if that happens, okay, accumulation of defective uromodulin will occur in cells. Okay, accumulation of defective uromodulin will occur in your cells accordingly. That will somewhat impair the normal functioning of those cells. That will impair the normal functioning of those renal tubular epithelial cells. Aside from that, mutation of your uromodulin gene will cause an increase in serum uric acid. Okay, it will cause an increase in serum uric acid and will result in gout development as early as teenage years. Okay, as early as teenage years. Gout development, it will result in gout development as early as teenage years. Of course, before the onset of detectable renal disease. Okay, and so mutation will cause increased serum uric acid and will result in development of gout in early years before the detection of renal disease. Okay, and then you have your renal glycosuria. Your renal glycosuria, okay, and so yes, it affects the absorption of glucose. In contrast kasi to Fanconi syndrome, everything is affected. Okay, the reabsorptive function for every solute is affected. In contrast, for renal glycosuria, the reabsorption for glucose is only affected. Okay, the reabsorption for glucose is only affected. But then before that, let's take a look at the normal things that happen. Okay, and so under normal circumstances, your glucose is not present in the urine. Under normal circumstances, your glucose is not present in the urine. It is filtered out, but then it is reabsorbed. Okay? If, what you call this, if the blood glucose level reaches the maximal tubular reabsorptive capacity for glucose, which is, which is 160 to 180, glucose will appear in the urine. Okay, so in patients with renal glycosuria, there is an increased urine glucose concentrations with normal blood glucose concentration. Okay, there is in patients with renal glycosuria, there is an increased urine glucose concentrations with normal blood glucose levels. Okay, so probably the affected here are in renal glycosuria, and the affected are the number of glucose transporters in the tubules is decreased, or the affinity of glucose transporters, or yes, the affinity of transporters for glucose is decreased. Either what is affected, the affinity of the transporters to glucose or the number of transporters to glucose are affected. And then you have your nephrogenic DI, your nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. Okay, your DI is an inherited defect of tubular response to ADH or acquired from medications. Okay, acquired from medications including lithium and amphotericin B. And yes, this nephrogenic DI may also be seen as a complication of polycystic kidney disease and sickle cell, okay, sickle cell anemia. Okay, and please note that yes, diabetes insipidus, nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. When you say nephrogenic, there is normal concentrations of what you call this. There is normal concentrations of antidiuretic hormone. There is normal concentrations of antidiuretic hormone. The problem is that the receptors are not responsive. The receptors to ADH are not responsive. For the laboratory findings, low specific gravity, pale yellow color, and yes, since there is low specific gravity, it will somewhat give false negative. Okay, pale yellow color because there is a dilute. It is a dilute. There is the inability to concentrate the urine. Okay, causing a dilute urine. That is why in DI, there is a high chance for false negative results in chemical test. High chance for false negative results in chemical tests. And then you have your acute pyelonephritis. Okay, when you say pyelonephritis, this is an infection of the renal interstitium and the tubules. Infection of the renal tubules and renal interstitium for pyelonephritis. And yes, acute pyelonephritis occurs most frequently as a result of ascending movement of bacteria from the lower urinary. Okay, acute pyelonephritis occurs most frequently as a result of ascending movement of bacteria from the lower urinary. Okay, going up into the renal tubules and renal interstitium. Okay, again, there is infection of renal tubules and interstitium related to interference in the urine flow to the bladder, reflux of urine from the bladder, and untreated cystitis accordingly. Okay, and so why is there an ascending bacteria? Why is there an ascending movement of bacteria from the bladder? Okay, this one, ascending movement, is enhanced with conditions that interfere with the downward flow of the urine from the ureters to the bladder or incomplete emptying of the bladder during micturition. So, okay, and so obstruction will favor the ascending movement of bacteria. Okay, obstruction. You have renal calculi, pregnancy, and reflux of urine from the bladder back into the ureter in case of vesicoureteral reflex. Okay, all of those will favor the ascending, the moving up of bacteria into the bladder. Okay, and so for this one. And yes, in case of acute pyelonephritis, patients will feel lower back pain. Okay, patients will feel lower back pain. Of course, treatment, antibiotics, of course, treatment, antibiotics. Okay, and laboratory, WBC, WBC casts, and bacteria, mild proteinuria, and heavy hematuria, and mild proteinuria and hematuria accordingly. Okay, and so on a side note, please note that your urinary tract infection, okay, your urinary tract infection, someone will have a frequent burning urination. Okay, someone will have a frequent burning urination. And to identify the infection in case of UTI and pyelonephritis, you what they call this, you make use of bacterial culture to identify the causative agent. Your chronic pyelonephritis. Chronic pyelonephritis, this is a recurrent infection of the renal tubules and renal interstitium that is caused by structural abnormalities affecting the urine flow. And these structural abnormalities may cause a reflux between the bladder and ureters or may cause a reflux within the renal pelvis, affecting the emptying of the collecting ducts accordingly. No? And yes, your chronic pyelonephritis will result in permanent damage to the renal tubules and will possibly progress to chronic renal failure. It will possibly progress to chronic renal failure. Please note that congenital urinary structure defects producing reflux nephropathy are the most frequent cause of chronic pyelonephritis. Okay, congenital urinary structural defects producing reflux nephropathy, they are the most frequently cause of chronic pyelonephritis. And please note, in chronic pyelonephritis, you have granular and waxy and broadcasts. WBC cast, and bacteria are seen. Okay, please note that this one, granular, waxy, and broadcasts, will be seen as the disease progresses. Okay, and yes, as the disease progresses, increased proteinuria and hematuria will be seen also. Your acute interstitial nephritis. Your acute interstitial nephritis is an allergic inflammation of the renal interstitium in response to certain medications. Okay, so you have the medications commonly associated with the acute interstitial nephritis. You have penicillin, methicillin, ampicillin, cephalosporins, rifampin, sulfonamides, NSAIDs, thiazides, diuretics. You have also indinavir, proton pump inhibitors, allopurinol, 5-aminosalicylates, diuretics, and cimetidine. Okay, those are associated with acute interstitial nephritis. Okay, signs and symptoms for this one. You have oliguria, edema, decreased renal concentrating ability, and a possible decrease in glomerular filtration rate. Okay, skin rash is also a frequent initial symptom. Fever and skin rash, they are initial symptoms, frequent initial symptoms according. And yes, in this case, renal interstitium takes place or inflammation of the renal interstitium takes place followed by the inflammation of renal tubules. Kaya po nagkakaroon ng acute interstitial nephritis. Laboratory, hematuria, okay, and so macroscopic, and then macroscopic hematuria and microscopic hematuria, proteinuria, mild to moderate. What else? Uh, WBC, WBC casts without bacteria accordingly. And yes, please note, okay, urinary eosinophils. Okay, what do you call this? Differential count and the presence of increased eosinophils are useful in diagnosis of interstitial nephritis because again, greater than 1% eosinophils, okay, in the urine may indicate drug-induced interstitial nephritis. And then you have your cystitis. Your cystitis, this one is an inflammation of the bladder or urinary bladder. Okay, it is an ascending bacterial infection of the bladder. Okay, and in this case, of course, there is bacteria, of course, in the urine. Okay, there is numerous leukocytes, red blood cells, transitional epithelial cells, histiocytes, and bacteria. And mild proteinuria and increased pH accordingly. Please note that there is no WBC cast because again, cast formation takes place in the kidneys. It takes place in the kidneys. Okay, and so since cystitis, the infection occurs in the urinary bladder, then your urinary bladder is not capable of making casts. That is why there is no cast. Your WBC cast here will differentiate cystitis from pyelonephritis. Renal failure, your renal failure can be acute or chronic. And yes, there is a gradual progression from original disorder to chronic renal failure or end-stage renal disease or ESRD. And yes, progression of the original disorder to renal failure is characterized by marked decrease, okay, marked decrease in GFR of less than 25 ml per minute. Okay, steadily rising azotemia. Okay, there is an increased BUN and creatinine levels in the blood. And then electrolyte imbalance. There is a possible decrease or increase in the electrolytes sodium and potassium and other electrolytes. Calcium and yes, and chloride. And then there is lack of renal concentrating ability. There is an isostenouric urine. Okay, there is an isostenouric urine and proteinuria, renal glycosuria, and yes, presence of or abundance of granular casts, waxy casts, broad casts, or presence of your telescoped sediments, presence of your telescope sediments accordingly. Failure, please note acute renal failure, there is a sudden loss of the renal function. Causes, okay, and so they can be pre-renal, renal, or post-renal. Okay, and so pre-renal, that may be caused by, what they call this, that may be caused by shock. Okay, that may be caused by decrease in cardiac output or decrease in blood pressure or, yes, hemorrhage, burns, surgery, and septicemia. Okay, and so toxic shock, no? Renal, that can be caused by acute glomerulonephritis, acute tubular necrosis, acute pyelonephritis, and then your acute interstitial nephritis. While your post-renal cause of acute renal failure can be calculi. Okay, calculi, tumors, and crystallization of ingested substances. Crystallization of ingested substances. Okay, and so those are causes of your acute renal failure. And please note that this one is frequently irreversible. Frequently urethritis, that is the infection or inflammation of the urethra. Okay, and so for laboratory, WBC are seen, pus cells, red cells, and usually no bacteria in the routine urine analysis if midstream clean catch is employed. If midstream clean catch is employed, again, usually there is no bacteria. Okay, and so usual microorganisms for that, what we call this, that causes urethritis. You have Neisseria gonorrhoeae, Chlamydia trachomatis, and genital mycoplasma. Okay, examination of the urethral exudate and pelvic examination is will help in the diagnosis of urethritis accordingly. Thank you so much. This has been Gael reminding you to live fully, love deeply, love often, keep learning, and never forget to enjoy the ride. And as you move forward, may you always choose curiosity over fear, kindness over convenience, and growth over comfort. And yes, you celebrate your small victories, you honor your quiet moments, and trust that every step, no matter how uncertain, shapes the story you are meant to tell. The world is wide, your time is precious, and your journey is uniquely yours. Go make it extraordinary. Thank you. Thank you so much, and see you around.